across LC with your hosts, Jeff Alsman and Cody Zidman.
Oh, yeah. Jeff Alsman.
You like that music, don't you?
I do like the music. Happy birthday.
Hey, happy birthday to you. This is our first podcast of season number 2.
Season number 2. And how do we start it off?
At the top.
With tea time, baby! That's what I'm talking about. He's here with us.
Our guest in the studio is Lewis and Clark College president. I'm going to turn the music down. I know you love it, but I'm going to bring it down a little bit. Dr. Ken Trzaska, or as we affectionately call him, Dr. T around campus. Welcome to our big birthday party.
This is fantastic, gentlemen. It's awesome to be here, and congratulations on 1 year.
We're surprised,
awesome.
or at least
that you weren't canceled. Right?
Yeah,
like,
I'm not surprised. 1.3 million viewers. Whatever you want to say.
There you go, man. There you go.
I think he's taken all of our podcasts together and still extrapolated that out, but his math is still not real good.
Yeah, I understand that. His math may be a little off, but we support you, Cody.
I know that. I always know that.
No, it's really great to be here. Appreciate all that both of you do for LC and the community, and just excited to have some conversation today.
Well, we're just happy that we've made it to season 2, and we hope that we can continue to provide information that's entertaining and informative, let people know about what's going on campus, about the programs that we have, about community events that happen both on and off campus, and just kind of spread information, really, and try to do it in an entertaining way. And hopefully we've been successful with that for the first season and can continue to do that. And it's a lot of fun for us, so we appreciate the opportunity to be A to Z across LC.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, I'm fired up about
I can tell.
the
You're not as
future.
excited as you usually are, though.
I know it's a show about the T-Bird, so I'm kind of backing off a little bit. I want to steal the thunder.
I just have to tell you, I don't know how you get away with things like Tea Time and T-Bird. And
hey, I just got to tell you this. That's his personality. Like, we have the coolest president ever.
Braver than
like, he's
I
right
agree.
there on the front line.
I agree with that, but you're braver than I am. I just
Well, I recently gave you Sea Dog, right?
Yeah,
so
that's
there you
right.
go. So it's a little back and forth, right?
So you're gonna have to come up with an animal for me now.
And I'm literally a nickname guy. We're athletics. That's what we do. I can't wait till on the podium. Can I do this on board meeting day when I just throw it across and I'd be like the K-Man and Griff and Soup and all those?
Yeah.
That's why.
Why not?
Yeah.
It's part of the culture. It's part of the identity.
culture.
It's part of where we're going. So
Can we edit? Can we edit that in post? I don't know if
they'd love it. They'd probably be fired up across the way.
Take your chances, I suppose. Hey, before we get going, since we do talk about events, let me talk about a couple important ones that are coming up. July 29th is the Express registration event on campus where students can come in and go through the process the speed process of. It's kind of like coming down pit row and you're doing everything and then getting back out on the course, where they can come in and kind of get a taste of everything on campus all in one location, get registered, get all the details out of the way, be fired up and ready to go when the next semester starts. And then we'll have new student orientation on August 9th for all the new students on campus to come and kind of, again, get familiarized, tour the campus and kind of get prepared because it's right around the corner.
I know.
So
it's awesome. I like it. I'm excited about this year. We got a lot of good things going on.
Yeah, we do.
Something else we should do is just pause for a moment and look around the room at the back. I want to call it backdrop, but that's not really right. But whatever the right word for that is.
Nice. Way to be, Producer O.
Doesn't it look awesome with Producer O, I'm going to bring your mic up. Tell us what that is called. I don't want to use the wrong wording for what's on the walls.
This is a studio wrap. Yeah, basically it's just branding. We could have had, if we had other sponsorship like Cody's always pushing for athletics, we could have had a sponsor up there.
Heck yeah, baby.
But we have digital streaming broadcast media. That is our department. That's who produces all the podcasts for the campus. And me and Mike Lemons were a part of that. And so we also produce the A to Z podcast and the No Box podcast. And students come in and they work out of the studio. So it's a good opportunity for everyone to see in the community that what we've got going on here and how they could also be a part of it too if they want.
And we should also send out props to Hannah Herman,
correct,
who is a student now or was a student. She is still a student,
yeah.
She designed, this is her design that they took and put on the wall, and just, I mean, it's really cool.
I think that there were something like 17 versions of this before we got final approval of what needed to happen. So it's not just she made some fun, fancy art designs, and then we just slapped it up there. There was a lot of
vetting.
There was a lot of vetting. Well, our logo, we went through the rebrand, and we have new branding, so we have new logos and new identifiers, and a lot of that had to be approved through media services and things like that. And so then once it got all buttoned up, we had it thrown up, and they knocked it out in about 4 hours, putting it on the wall once they got it printed. I won't say it was a quick process, but it was faster than I thought.
Well, it looks great, and you need to make sure that this is a stop on the tour anytime somebody comes through the building, that they get a chance to
You just had Daniel
to
Nassay
see
on the
this.
show.
Yeah, we
right?
did.
Yeah.
That's right, last time.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we need to
sweet.
get him back in here so he can see
So
the
he
wall
can,
wrap.
he'll know to stop by. Well, it does look great, and congratulations, and a big thank you to Hannah for the work that she put in on that. And
She did our characters.
she did
too,
our
right?
characters and
She's talented,
graphics
very
and things
talented.
like that for our podcast too. So she's very, very talented young lady. So kudos to her. So Dr. T.
That'd be me.
Yes, you.
This show's all about you. Time to
just
tee
seemed
off.
to be the perfect guest to kick off our second season. We're all about looking ahead and,
Yes.
and visioning for what our podcast might look like going forward, some new elements we might add to it. And I suspect that you kind of have the same outlook for this upcoming year now that we're getting closer and closer to the semester beginning. And we just want to give you an opportunity to kind of share some of that, things that are exciting to you, challenges that might be out there, how secondary education is changing, just all of those things that are on your plate, every day that we don't probably think about a lot, but you have to.
Yeah. How much time do we have? It's a great question. And, I always feel I walk this really fine line with kind of, remaining extremely optimistic, which is my nature. And I am extremely optimistic, but there's this other side that is really pressing against us. Not just Lewis and Clark, but education, higher education, K through 12 education. Sort of this educational pipeline is beginning to be reckoned with economics, with finances, ultimately the same as economics, with expectations that students have, community has, legislators have. And so we as a college, kind of thinking about our identity both from an inside perspective. It's that old saying, it's, the inside job and the outside job. The inside job is who are we, what do we want to be, and am I in or am I out? And I know that's a hard question perhaps to pose, but it's a little bit of a preview of what I'll challenge our team with in August. Are we in or are we out? Because if you're not in 100%, I'm no longer a believer that you can be in 99%. You're 100% or you're not. And you find solutions because the pressure is going to keep coming. And an example, Jeff, is, I think every week we hear of colleges closing, we hear of colleges cutting, we hear of all these things happening, and in my opinion, and maybe this is a bit of an edgy statement, I feel that the lack of innovation, progressive innovation, not just saying, hey, we need to be innovative now because we have to be, but what happened to being innovative last year, the year before, the year before, the year before, the year before, because innovation compounds and it creates identity, it creates structure, it creates opportunity. So for me, optimistic in that we have a fantastic team. Like any college, we have our challenges. And I will say that this year, without saying too much, there are going to be some major changes. That's not in a negative way. It's just we're trying to elevate and we're trying to do things at a higher level that allow us to be competitive, allow us to remain relevant. I think that's the kind of the alarming word out there is how are we going to remain relevant? I think investments in programs like this one, where we're really trying to take it to a new level. Athletics is another area where we've made a conscious investment into thinking of athletics a little differently, where coaches also are extensions of recruiters. They're in the community. They're creating a culture that ultimately elevates the whole campus. But it's going to be a challenge, guys, because, what does the future of this work look like? I mean, we have this amazing campus. Will there be a day sooner than later where students are like, hey, I like that campus, but I want to sort of sit in my room and jump on a class with Alsman and maybe come to campus once every couple of weeks just to kind of check in or get in the lab, so to speak. So we have to just be conscious of what's coming down the pipeline and how we as individual leaders, and when I say that, I mean everybody on this campus in their own right has to consider themselves a leader to move the needle. What can you be doing? What should you be stopping doing? What it is? How can you encourage those folks next to you to say, "Hey, listen, let's think about this. Let's find the 5 reasons that this can work, and not focus on the 86 reasons it's probably going to be difficult." Because that's going to be the difference between the colleges that are super successful versus those that are kind of struggling. Is they're not willing to jump off into the deep end and know that they have a culture and a team, a board, a community that if you don't land just right, we got you. And we restart rather than, damn, that didn't work. It didn't work, and you begin to get discouraged. So I'm excited. I mean, it's maybe a cliche thing to say now, but it's to me the most exciting time to be in the work. It's scary as heck, but it's the most exciting time because we have in front of us an opportunity to do some real amazing things.
So has this potentially changing landscape just kind of fallen upon us quickly and maybe exacerbated by COVID, or has it been ongoing and it just hasn't been on everybody's radar? Or change is always tough if people just kind of thought, well, if we don't pay attention to it, maybe it won't happen.
Okay. Here's controversial thing number 2. This will be an explosive episode 1.
I like it.
I think in general, we have and I'll be general because this isn't about pointing fingers. It's kind of the collective. It's kind of why we are where we are right now in a general kind of educational environment. It's kind of, if you take your hand and put it up to your face, you can't really see that. I think we've just been looking at the way we've existed too closely, and we've taken that for granted, and we haven't paid attention to the changing dynamics in our environment. Whether that what is happening with our students, what do they want, why do they want it, how do they want it, and how are we adapting to that? Now, that's not to say we haven't done a good job in education adapting and being agile, but I think a lot of times we've done what we've needed to do rather than do what has to happen in order for us to be long-term sustainable. Because if we were doing it right, we would be seeing the opposite in the media. We would be seeing the opposite, in articles in higher ed journals and in major, news networks that colleges are closing, colleges are struggling. That just doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I feel that the movement that we're talking about started about 20 years ago. I personally remember talking when I was up in Michigan about CBE and moving. Actually, I just found the presentation I gave to the board up there back in 2010 about this is a direction we need to move in, especially in a smaller market where we need to really align what we're doing in these programs more specifically to what's happening in industry and really move away from the credit hour. I mean, it's like the mall. I mean, essentially, there's going to be no malls. Essentially, there's going to be no credit hour. It's going to be like, hey, listen, what are you competent in? What can you show that you can do? And then you get that job or you get that promotion rather than us saying, hey, we have to stuff you into this sort of structure of you need an associate, you need a bachelor's degree. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but I think it's I don't know, cliche example, Netflix. I mean, remember Redbox? They still exist, but essentially they're going away. Now it's all streaming. Think about that in the context of education. How are we keeping up with the expectations of the environment? So to answer your question in a very pointed way, no. I think the expectations of change are catching up with us. I think some colleges have just kept a little bit ahead of that by doing something cool, trying something new, but not sustaining it. Now it's a matter of how do we sustain the investments we're making so that they make a meaningful difference.
Getting ahead of the trend as opposed to just trying to catch up to where it is today.
I need to get in this conversation.
Hop in.
Yeah, where have you been lately?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm listening, and I'm getting fired up over here, and I want to just go from the athletics. So there's a few things that I hear, so I'm translating in the athletics student version of this. This is what I hear is, we want to be the institution that leads and is not afraid of failing, but failing forward.
Yes, sir.
We're not constantly finding, hey, what are you doing over here? And what are you doing over here? And what are you doing over here? Oh, yeah, that's a good model. We're going to do it. No. Yeah. We're going to do our own model. Yeah. We're going to be in front of this. And then people are going to be like, well, how did you do this? And sometimes we're not going to get it right, but we're going to continue to go forward. And that first statement that you made, too, I hear that you say, and we have three, I ask this question for every interview that I've been in, went on the committee. I asked the person's three non-negotiables, and they give me the stuff. But we have three non-negotiables in athletics. We have character, we have commitment, and we have compete level. And that's how we run since last year. So what I hear for the institution is the people here have the character to be innovative. Mm-hmm. It's in their nature. We don't want to hear what other people have already done and model it. We want to be forward thinking. You have the commitment not to be 99% in, to be 100%. And you talked about how we want to compete. Well, what we're trying to do moving forward is raise our compete level every year to lead. Yep. Everywhere else. So in these two questions that have come here and modeled that, just the drive on the vision of where you want to go fires me up so much, because that's what I hear. And all that you explained, it's just to have the courage to be the institution, to be first, not just follow somebody else.
Yeah, I think and I think with that comes challenges. I mean, we've introduced the vision about 3 years ago for competency-based ed, and we have a great number of faculty and staff who are engaged in that work. But like other institutions who may have tried this, and we run into barriers. But I look at those as opportunities to, I think exactly what you said, is to get it to that next level, because nothing's going to be ever, it's like nothing's ever going to be perfect. There's this sort of perpetual labor, right, of continuing to grow and expand and enhance the model. And that's exciting to me, and as a president behind the scenes, it's like you're constantly trying to connect the dots, you're trying to motivate, you're trying to solve problems that probably 99% of the team doesn't know, and that's okay. Because, what I want to be able to show the team is that we're in a good place, and they don't need to, it's like going to a great restaurant, and it comes out like, wow, this looks really good, but you have no idea the sweat, the energy that a team in that kitchen went through to give you something that's remarkable. And the next week it's even better, and the next week it's even better. And I think that is really where we have to be in education. It's no longer, back to your point, Jeff, is being comfortable. Like we just can't be comfortable. I mean, even in the moment we start to feel comfortable, get uncomfortable, because that is a prompt, I think, for us as leaders at any level of the college to wake up and keep pushing. Because nobody's going to wait for us. I mean, there are so many options out there. I mean, in terms of gaining knowledge and improving yourself, that how do we create the type of environment as a campus culture where students, community, whoever, like LC is the place to be. That, right? I mean, that's the place that we can go, and they will provide us with what we need to get to that next level that we want to get to. And to me, that's super exciting. I mean, it's just exciting. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of heavy lifting. But I quite frankly, wouldn't want to do anything else, because it's just...
You're a guy that loves the process.
I do. I love the process, and sometimes, you gotta be a little edgy with that, and, that's something I'm pushing myself to just be pretty direct with folks, but in a respectful, kind way. It's just, hey, we've got to push a little bit here. There's always going to be reasons we can't, but I'm more, I'd rather fail by saying we tried, than saying we just didn't try, and so we don't even know what failure looked like. Because from failure, you should be able to learn a heck of a lot. Like, why did we fail?
How hard is it as president to paint a vision of something that you're not sure exactly what it looks like?
I think
at the end.
Yeah, I think for me, I've always been somebody that's been able to frame, and I think that's the essence of success and non-success is how you frame something. And for me, I've always been a believer in access and agility as kind of these two components of growth, of sustainability, of relevance. And so as I look at something like competency-based education, which isn't necessarily revolutionary, but how we frame that around the idea of being the most accessible institution we possibly can and being the most agile in the context of what do our policies look like? What do our processes look like? What do our relationships look like? Are we agile enough with each other? And this all kind of gets reduced down to, what do our schedules look like? What do they feel like to students? And so for me, it's creating that framework to where everyone's like, oh, I get that. And then those, it's like the ingredients, like the process is CBE. It could be enhancing what online looks like. It could be, wrapping additional services around that student experience that all link into being more agile and being more accessible. And to me, I think that's it. But it is difficult because and what I've learned over, 25 years is you have to keep pushing. You have to keep it's like talking, right? And I talk a lot, right? But you talk to the point to where the ideas become someone else's ideas because they've adopted it, they've embraced it, and I think that's what we see happening here at Lewis and Clark. But at the same time, we have our challenges where there are those folks on our team, and appreciate them just as much as those that are 100% in, but how do I, and that's my challenge, is how do I motivate and inspire and allow access for that 1 to 5% that are just not sure. I mean, and so for me, that's where the real work is, because oftentimes those are the folks that could have that idea that's like, hey, I know I've been out in the margins for the last 3 years, 12 days and 18 hours, but now I get it. What do you think about this? Where have you been, Jeff? That's what I think that's what fires me up, lights me up. So
what just popped into my mind is an illustration, and correct me if I'm way off, but I picture walking into a library, taking all of the books off the shelf, possibly recreating the entire catalog, and then putting all the books back in different places than they ever were before. Because that's very possible. It could be an entire systems change that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think, and here it is that education within, and I'm going to give a little bit of a window, within probably 3 to 6 or 7 years is going to look radically different. It's just going to, and the question we have to ask ourselves is, where are we going to be in that new identity? As an institution. I just read recently, I think it just came out today, that the public has tremendous confidence in the two-year institution and sees tremendous value in the two-year institution against the four-year institution. I mean, our four-year friends are doing great work as well. However, I think they need to, press themselves as well to ask, what are we doing to be relevant? What are we doing to reimagine what this idea of education looks like from a four-year perspective, and then I think even, we haven't even touched on the K through 12, but that's another one of those systems that sort of has to be disrupted a little bit. I mean, I think it is. I mean, I know quite a few of the superintendents in our region fairly well, some of them very, very well, and they're just some of the most creative, just bold individuals I've ever met, and they're pushing some limits, which I love, because if you're not pushing limits, then you're getting comfortable, so to speak. So,
are you ready to push limits on this show?
Well, I was actually ready.
That's what he's telling us right now.
I was actually ready to take.
Let's get a little edgy.
I was going to take our first break. It was what I was going to do
right now.
Go ahead. You have a question ready?
No, I know. We can break. Should we let him say that?
Oh, we should, shouldn't we? You want to explain what?
So we stumbled upon this the end of last season.
Yes.
And so now, I always yell, "We are," and then the song comes in LC. But now we are is everybody.
We
so
are.
our guests say it as we go out. So to take us in our first break here, you're going to say we are.
Okay. We are.
LC A to Z.
Yo, what up? It's Mike Keith, the proud graduate of Lewis and Clark. I got my start in the radio program that put me on the path to where I am today. We still do radio, but now we're so much more. Podcasting, producing, and editing, not to mention new equipment, studios, courses, and a new name. If you want to work in professional media or create better content for the things you love, do like I did and discover your path at Lewis and Clark Community College. Enroll today at lc.edu.
And welcome back to our A to Z Across LC podcast. Jeff Alsman here, Cody Zipman as well. And as you know, we're joined by our guest, Dr. Kenneth Trzaska, to be
The
official.
T-bird. We're on the back nine right now with tea time.
Well, we're kind of in the mid. We're not quite in the back.
We're starting
nine,
the back nine of tea time.
Yes. He's been generous with his time to come in and drop some of the things in his busy schedule. He just likes to talk to you, so that's why he made room for us.
Yeah, that's it.
So he's here. So we appreciate your time for sure. So tell us about some of the things. We talked kind of internally, but tell us about some of the things that somebody from the community may not know is going on here, but is happening that raises that level of relevance that you were talking about in the first segment, or things that might be new that they may not even know is going on, but you'd like for them to know because it kind of points out what you're, or reemphasizes some of the changes that you've seen that are positive.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, I've been super excited about what's happening on the enrollment side. I feel, part of this idea of rethinking about what access looks like and how we assure ourselves that we're relevant to our students' expectations. That's been really positive and I think motivating for the team. I think in that same context, big lifts like our main complex renovation, which is been years in the making, that those dollars have been secured. We are now in that schematics phase. I think in September of this month, or September of this year, we'll have a presentation to the board with drawings. The idea is that this renovation is reflective of the future. It's not, we're going to just remodel some classrooms that look a little better than they did 40 years ago. This is about what do these spaces look like and how do they reflect where we feel the direction of this campus is going in terms of how students will want to be engaged, how the community will want to be engaged. I think another really big one that nobody probably really hears about is, how we're really beginning to rethink about the nature of work on campus. I think that's kind of a nebulous one, but even from a teaching and learning perspective, about 3 years ago, we introduced a teaching and engagement model, which was kind of a new take on how we leverage the talent in our faculty here outside the classroom. So you might have a faculty member who has a program that is struggling a bit. And so this gives them some opportunity to be engaged in recruitment, to be engaged in perhaps enhancing that curriculum through exploring, for example, competency-based education, which is probably the other one that's super exciting. I mean, that is like the future. And while CBE in some way, shape, or form has been around out there in the real world for many, many years. I mean, this was, how the military essentially trains. But now it's kind of bringing that focus into a higher education environment is tricky in the context that we've always done it the way we've always done it. 16 weeks. Faculty are typically paid on 30 hours, but how do we create a more agile, accessible model against a sort of framework that was built 100 years ago, in theory? And so a lot of that work is exciting to me because it's about turning over to something new and refreshed and something that's going to allow us to be relevant. And, I think the strange sort of fun part of that is helping the team get to that level, to where it's about us being positioned to be better at serving our students and community. It's not just because, Sea-Dog is here, but I'm excited about what is happening on the athletic side. I mean, I think whether people like this statement or not, we've struggled on that athletic side for years and years, from an identity perspective, from a structure perspective. And my only charge to Cody when he came in as AD was to transform culture and to create the team that he feels will elevate athletics to that next level, and also support that the inner workings on this campus. So it's sort of like the chief dot connector. So athletics isn't just athletics out on the island of athletics. Athletics is an integral part of the entire campus culture. So how those coaches are involved, how the players are involved, and how they're pulling in faculty and staff at every level of the college to be involved in the identity of athletics. And then in turn, everybody's kind of involved in everybody else's business. It's sort of like that whole, hey, stay out of my business. We want everybody to be in everybody's business. I think that's what's exciting, because that support system allows us to motivate each other. It allows us to show support for one another, and it allows us to bounce crazy ideas off one another that will take this stuff to the next level. I think there's some really exciting work going on with the high schools, and we were really trying to look at new ways to allow high school students to be on our campus, to be engaged in like concurrent enrollment as well as dual credit, just so they get that exposure to Lewis and Clark a little bit more than perhaps they've done in the past. And then I just think that the piece too is the culture part. I mean, just building culture is the most complicated thing, but it's the most rewarding, because I want people to pull up to work every day and feel fired up about being here, even if they're struggling with something. But they know that they've got the team. They know that everybody's going to be in their business, right, and that they have a support system to kind of get to that next step. And so for me, the challenge is like being sure everybody's in, right, being sure people are ready to rock and roll, and that they are doing everything in their power to make sure that student experience is the most remarkable one that we can ever imagine. But yeah, I'm excited to start in August. I mean, it's crazy. It's already, we're teeing up pretty quickly to that. It's just, I'm just excited about what's ahead. I mean, one that the community wouldn't be aware of is state level stuff. So I've been asked, and we have a group of other presidents to lead essentially a statewide movement toward competency-based education. So looking at a model that would in many ways support education across the state. And that's an awesome opportunity, I think, for us to show what's been working with Lewis and Clark, but also recognize what hasn't been working and try to use that to inform, as well as other schools. There's other colleges across the state now that are dabbling in that space, but ultimately, how do we bring all that together to elevate education in Illinois, and then perhaps inspire other states to look at this as well? So generally speaking, I'm excited.
Go ahead.
What are you excited about? Now that you've heard all this, and I want all the listeners and viewers, think about it. You've seen the press. He's gave you some direction. He's talked about everything. This is a guy that loves his ping pong. This is a guy that gets his hands dirty, right? He gets out in the landscaping. He loves projects. I know this for things. So he's got a maintenance side to him. I don't know how well a maintenance side, but he's got a maintenance side to him. So you got this grinder at the head, willing to be into everything, not just sitting in the office. Really, frankly, tell you the truth, most of the time I think he's not in the office. He's moving around. What are you excited about?
From our conversation today, I think what I would be excited about is, what does all of this look like? And not knowing that, but being a part of it in some way, probably a small part on my end, but finding out when the finish line. But what I'm also hearing is the finish line probably always moves.
Yes.
And so I don't know that I'll ever see what the finished product looks like, because I don't know that the project ever finishes.
Doesn't.
Trends will continue to change. Yeah. The landscape, and always being ready to bob and weave or dodge or whatever to go to the next direction you need to go to, and not knowing what that looks like. I mean, in a way, if you really break it down, it really takes you back to Lewis and Clark and the expedition. Yes. And the discovery, and having no idea what they were going to find when they crossed the river or crossed the mountain, but being ready to tackle that challenge head on when they got there
Yes.
and found out what was there. That's the exciting part, because I don't know that anybody knows what that looks like 5 years from now, but we just all know it's going to look different.
What you just described, I hope every listener heard. Okay, there is no end game. There's goals that you achieve, but when you are in a high compete level, there is no end game. So when staff wins the KD Cup by 14,000 points, you know what we're trying to do this next year, staff team? We're trying to win by 20,000 points. When people go to the moon, you know what we try to do in the future? We try to go to Mars. There's only markers when you have a high compete level. There's no end game, because we're constantly innovating. We're constantly competing. We're constantly moving forward.
I think, a great point of all this is and when I was in the classroom many, many years ago, it was kind of a weird thing to say to your class, is I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm here to create the environment in which you can learn. And then sometimes you'd get people scratching their head, well, I'm paying $200 for this class. But ultimately, that I think is in essence what we're trying to create and facilitate. I mean, even if you look around this room, this program is an example of leveraging the TEM model to say, how do we reimagine, how do we reinvent ourselves so that we remain relevant. And the environment of our campus, meaning each and every one of us make up the environment. Each and every one of us make up that culture. So if we're in and we're willing to keep moving those markers, understanding that we're all in, then it's literally, Mars is just the beginning, right?
Yes.
It's not like where we're stopping. I think I think it's just exciting. It really is. And I think, for anybody listening out there, if you're in this work and you're not excited, get out of the work, because there's other work. Be in it because you care more than you could even imagine you could care. And know that you have the ability individually as leaders to create that environment, to facilitate that environment, to enhance that environment where everybody feels like, yeah, I'm going to make something happen today. And I have the team behind me to back me up, whether it's exactly going to be perfect or whether I'm going to fall right on my butt. So
this is going to be an off the wall question, okay? But and then we want to talk about the No Box podcast as well before we go today. But so you sound like you live in a world of lots of stress, lots of things going on all the time, fast moving, fast decision making, high pay, just all of that. What does Dr. T do to just unwind and relax?
I don't know. I like to meditate. I do yoga, do a little martial arts. I love to hike. I like to do projects. I'm basically remodeling my whole house by myself. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm the kind of person that will figure it out.
When he's doing that, he's thinking, I need to find a what was it, a competency-based person to come over and
but that's it. Like I'll access resources. I'll watch videos. I'll call friends. I'll reach out to folks. I did some plumbing work, and I'm like, wow. I don't know. I think I sent that to Cody. I'm like, I don't know what these guys were smoking when they put this pipe in, but it was like backwards, and I realized that. And it was put in 20 years ago, but. I had to saw it off, and then you're like, oh my God, I just sawed a pipe, and what if I can't fix it? But I think that's I don't know. It's always been my nature. I'm a big sports person. I played soccer growing up, football. I love people. I love work. I love making a difference, and I just don't know any other way. I appreciate the work you're doing. It's a little bit of a bummer to be the number 2 podcast of the college, but I'm trying to work on my listeners, But no, I think it's just a matter of sometimes stepping back. And I'm not going to lie, I struggle with that sometimes, because there's always a lot coming at you. So I think you have to. My wife helps me with this a little bit, and others around me just shut it off. Just stop for a couple of days, but it's tough. It's tough because I like having my hands in. I don't want to always like overstep and I trust my people to do what they need to do, but I like to be involved. I like to, because this is important work, and it's, yeah. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but well, yeah.
And you give out your cell number. I can't believe he does that.
I love it.
Yeah, sometimes I'll get texts from folks like, "Hey, Dr. T," and I'm like, "Who is this?" And then the most recent one was funny, and they're like, "Well, like, I don't know, like, you don't know?" I'm like, "No, you sent me a text. I don't know. I don't have you in my. It was funnier then. Sorry, that was a really bad. But I get sort of. But it's okay. I mean, I'm okay with that access. To me, some people are like, you shouldn't do that. But it's, I used to do that when I was teaching. I gave everybody my I guess landline back then or whatever. And sometimes you get a call, and it's better that you're accessible, right? And saying, hey, I don't know how to get in contact with my instructor, and plus, I don't know. This might sound a little bit weird, but I'm just another guy trying to get some work done and help motivate and make a difference. So,
yeah, I still have a microphone too. So I wanted to
Producer,
I want to chime in a couple of things. Number one, we got the number one podcast, the number two podcast for the campus. But do you have any idea what it's like to be involved in both the number one and number two podcast on campus? Because that's me and Mike. Secondly,
so does that mean you're the reason we have number one and number two podcasts?
I'm not saying it's not the reason. But what we should all do right now, all three of us, let's text Dr. T.
Well, there's four of us.
Well, we're going to text Dr. T. All three of us
text myself sometimes.
Text Dr. T.
reminders
to see if he has our name in his phone, because he said he'll get texts from guys all the time.
I know he does because I just recently texted him and he texted back. You really want us to do this?
Well, no, we don't actually have to. I thought it was funnier in my head.
And I'll
it was
hold
way
the phone
funnier
up
in my head. It was way funnier in my head.
They come up as like unknown.
Yeah.
That's what I'm fearing. I actually have the best picture of Dr. T in my phone because Dr. T and I and Mike, there's Mike.
Yeah.
We went on a trip to Atlanta.
That's another thing that was exciting. Wow.
Yeah, that was fun. We did some cool stuff.
Part of our marketing.
Right. And part of that was we were hanging out, so we had a good time.
Cody Zitman, T-Bird.
T-Bird. I didn't actually do it. I guess I should.
No, this is actually a terrible bit for a podcast, and I
because
probably should have kept
really
my mic
knows.
Silent. I can zoom in.
Dave.
Oh wow.
Who dis?
There it is. What's my picture on yours?
Actually, your picture is when we were in Atlanta.
Oh, that's what mine is for you.
And it is that one.
Yeah, I have the other.
That's a good one.
We really were there for work. Okay, this was in between meetings, right? Jeff smoking a cigar, right?
Right.
I mean, not Jeff. I mean Dave. And then Jeff.
I probably don't have a picture, do I?
You don't have a picture, but you will have a picture.
That doesn't sound good.
Let's go.
That does not.
There we go.
The rule is once you take a picture, you got to go with the first picture.
Yep.
You can't do retakes.
Gotta say.
Listen, I shouldn't have hijacked this segment of the show. I'm not sure that was a good enough bit. I'm going to go back into seclusion.
Well, you're the editor, so you can always wipe it out if you didn't like it.
That was good.
So
I can remove it. Here, I also want to.
So let's shift gears and let's talk about the No Box podcast.
Sure.
How that came about, what kind of fun that is, what your goals for it are.
It's fun, and I for me, I think I'm trying to push guests a little bit more going into this next season to really. I don't know, be a bit more outspoken around what needs to happen in education, what needs to happen in general environments as we come together as communities, as individuals, because all of that ultimately affects us. It affects economics. It affects how we interact socially. And so I'm excited about some of the guests coming up. We have a retired general next week, John Michel. He is in the area and has just done some amazing work. He's also going to be one of our featured speakers in August. I'm doing more of I'm trying to get 2 or 3 short people to complement me. Is a little bit of a different style. So you hear from 2 or 3 other leaders that have done some remarkable things in the world. As a way to motivate, as a way to kind of lend some additional perspective. But ultimately, the vision of that podcast was really to, again, cliche, but, I guess my cliche, right, is we always hear about let's think outside the box, let's push the limits, but what about just eliminating the damn box and thinking that we have a clean slate? And I think that's where we are in education. We have to continually think of the work as a new opportunity to refresh, refocus, refine. And so I've had college presidents, I've had some community leaders, and some other folks on the podcast that are just really beginning to explore that and what it means, what it looks like at these different institutions. And then I think as the seasons go forward, I'm going to start pushing, the edges a little bit. There are some higher profile guests I've sort of gotten, and then they've backed out. I wanted to, and I'll put it out there, I wanted to interview the president of my former alma mater, the College of St. Rose, where I got my master's degree. They closed, and they never responded. And I'll put it out there. It ticked me off. It's like, and it wasn't going to be anything negative. It's just like, hey, what's going on? And as a president of an institution that closed, you were probably put in place to help create an opportunity or an environment where that could have thrived, but it didn't thrive. So what challenges as president got in your way? But no response. I'm still going to try, but I think that's the edge, right? It's getting people in the studio or virtually that are okay with being challenged a little bit, and also be okay with putting ideas out there and pressing the people around them to start thinking differently. Because I don't see the sort of falling of institutions slowing down anytime soon. It's actually the one thing that probably worries me most, and that does include community colleges. There are unfortunately some very anemic communities across our country that struggle a lot in rural communities, and I had an opportunity to lead in rural Kansas. I loved it there. Fortunately, they're one of the few rural that are thriving. But there's a lot of struggles, if you're in a community where a hospital closes or a manufacturer closes, and then there's a community college, that's ultimately the last economic engine. And if that college closes, or if that college is struggling and they're needing to think, okay, what do we need to do to reset financially, or what do we need to redo, X or Y or Z, that can really be scary for those communities. And so we're seeing that happen across the country, and that worries me. But anyway, so, I think the old saying is the future is now. It's just unequally distributed. It's like we have to look at ways to pull people together, to pull resources together, to pull focus together, and pull energy together to create that environment where we have amazing podcasts, we have amazing learning environments, we have amazing folks like Dave that are, a lot of times guys like Dave are right behind the scenes, but they have an enormous impact. Mike, who's leading this program with Dave, this is a great example of taking something that, hey, we used to be really, really awesome, and then things slow down because the environment outside changes. Students are looking at programs differently. So how do we take a risk? So, I'm proud that we've created the environment where this can happen. Like in this studio can happen. Moving this program from a level to a next level, and then also thriving to keep going forward. That needs to be the attitude in every program, whether you're teaching English literature, or whether you're a nursing faculty member, or whether you're, teaching in automotive, or whether you're welding, or whether you're process tech, or whatever you are. That ask yourself, what is it that I can do to take this program to the next level? And I think if that's your premise, sky's the limit, knowing that the environment that you're in is going to have your back. And I think that's a message to all leaders out there. Are you creating the environment where the people on your team feel that you have their back? And if you don't have their back, or you could have their back better, then figure out how to do that.
He's getting fired up again.
I know he is.
Yeah.
He keeps going. He fires himself.
And we were just asking about what's the podcast all about.
Yeah.
And
I wanted to bring
That's what the podcast is about. It's exploring that stuff. It's pushing people, and
So do you prefer being the guest, or do you prefer being the host?
I like both.
Okay.
I like both.
I feel like he was a host today.
Oh, you do?
We kind of just guided. We were like all three producers. We were like, go.
I don't know. This is a really
I like that mug.
Yeah, these are new.
Can you hold? Yeah, can we get? There's a nice picture.
LC.
Yeah, I like that.
You all will get one of these. just had some delivered, so I'll
Oh.
give it to you.
Well,
Yeah. So
that.
this has been exciting, fellas. Really. I mean, you guys are doing amazing work, and it's
well, you know,
exciting.
we enjoy having you here, but I'm not sure how we're going to feel if you take over the #1 podcast spot, and we get like
Well, it's happening.
demoted.
It's happening.
Yeah, I think that the compete level is going to have to rise in here.
That's good. I'm not saying nothing.
Dave, you just got my text on what needs to happen. You should have me in your phone as well.
I like it because he's opened the doors for us to push the limits. And
I guess,
he
sort
is
of.
right there.
Yeah.
I like it. We got it on record.
And you've always been a little bit more pushy towards the limits than
now
I have
you know
been.
why. Now you know why.
Yeah, my background has been to come from a more reserved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can joke a little bit more, sing a little bit more, and
Hey,
get some edgier
you-
guests. I like it.
You can take your own risks at your own expense.
Record at your own risk.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So,
Good episode. Hey, good season 2, episode 1, right?
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to. And I have listened to several of the podcasts. You're past season 2, right? You said you were starting new.
Season 3, I think we're.
Yeah,
season
I was going to
3,
say.
yeah.
So.
I have to check with my agent. Dave. Hey, what season are we on, man?
So, I mean, the ones that I've listened to have been enjoyable, and the one thing that I have liked about the podcast is because a lot of the things that you talk about are things that I may or may not know a whole lot about necessarily, but I enjoy that it gives me an opportunity to engage and meet with new people that I wouldn't meet otherwise.
Right.
And you bring them in, and I feel like I, in some way, got to know them a little bit, or got to hear some of their ideas and things like that I wouldn't have heard if I didn't have that chance. So but it seems that many of them are saying the same things that you're saying today about the challenges that lie ahead. So
The information behind the scenes, that's why I like it.
Yeah.
Because that helps me, one, obviously follow the vision on where we're going. So from the different leaders and stuff, that's why I love the No Box podcast.
And your podcast is available just like ours, everywhere ours is, right? Spotify.
Apple, I guess YouTube,
The college Facebook page,
college
I think also.
Facebook page.
College
and,
YouTube also, I think?
I believe so, yeah. And quite a few other places you guys will never know about because I need to be
boost.
number one, yeah. So I'm trying to get it out there. I've got some
Well, we have talked about it, and we have agreed that we would certainly encourage our listeners to also go and listen to the No Box podcast.
Well, I encourage
So
the 9 listeners that have come. No, I don't know. It's what I love is when it's great to get information out there, but hopefully, kind of inspires and prompts people to, think a little differently about their thinking, and I think that's the piece that will continue to worry me that. People are scared to change, and it's inevitable, and it doesn't have to be scary if you have that environment that's going to support and be there to make sure that you don't fall, and if you do, hey, it's okay. I mean, we got you, and I think that's where we need to be.
Well, from one podcast to another, we are 100% with you. We have your back. So
Thank you. Appreciate you both very much. Appreciate all 3 of you.
thanks so much for being with us. I know we took up some time that you probably could have done something more important today, but we
Now that I think
love
about
having
it,
you. Yeah.
all these texts are coming in.
He's late to his next meeting by 15 minutes.
Yes, his agent is calling saying you need to leave.
Sue
good.
Keener, right?
Yeah.
She's awesome. Yeah.
Dr. Keener, shout out to
Yeah.
Dr. Keener.
So I guess going out, we should give him another chance to do the out cue because that's
we should. Can I make one announcement before we go
Sure.
out?
Oh,
real quick?
absolutely.
Okay,
Sure.
so team members and Trailblazer Athletic Club members, due to a big drive by Dr. T, the new team member gym opened on Monday in Hathaway 101. Hathaway 101. That's just down by the
across
pool.
the hall from the auditorium, kind of, right?
Yeah, by the auditorium. And so what we want you to do, though, because it's moving into this new fiscal year, where we started the LC wellness program. And so whether a team member, which means student, faculty, or staff, or obviously our many Trailblazer Athletic Club members, head over to the Athletic Suite offices. That's 215 A through D. Miss Dion is over there, and just make sure you register to get a membership card because we're tracking all this all year long. And FYI, I'm announcing it today, Katie Cup points by joining the program participation, 5 points, and then for every 10, that house gets a bonus of 25 points. So sign up and register yearly.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And you'll feed the Katie Cup and also your health. So that opened Monday, and I wanted to make that announcement on this podcast.
So will we see you doing some yoga over there?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'll be the guy standing on my head with my arms straight out. How is he doing that? On one finger.
That's on one finger.
Oh, my goodness.
All right. You're bringing us out.
We are LC!
LC A to Z.